Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for episode 9 of the On My Studio Table series. As usual, I'd like to start by sharing an artwork with you which is hanging behind me on my cupboard. This is all naturally dyed fabrics, mainly wool and silk, and mainly vintage fabrics. The wool would have been from old blankets that I dyed and cut up or tore, and the silk was mainly vintage kimono silk given to me by a friend who was repurposing the exteriors of the kimonos but didn't want the linings, and because they were all silk they were just a wonderful goldmine for me, so I'm so grateful that she gave them to me. I had a lot and it took me a while to actually use them all up. This was made in 2015. I did a series of a number of things that was ongoing called Written in the Cloth, and the idea was that without words a lot of things can be written into the cloth and the stitching, so that the imagery and the symbolism actually tell the story or the thoughts of the artist. And that was my idea behind giving that series the title. This was number 5 in the series. I did this in 2015, and the fabrics I used, some were dyed in a workshop that I did with Aukje Boonstra, who is a wonderful Tasmanian artist. She does wonderful eco dyeing and also repurposing of clothing and textile art, and I so enjoyed doing the workshop with her. I hosted the workshop through my gallery, and we used an old garage for the premises because the weather was absolutely terrible, and that was great because we could just make a mess and enjoy it and learn. So the fabrics, the wool and the silk, I kept for a while before I decided to make something with them. And you'll notice there are some dark marks on some of the silk also and some of the wool, and they are from rusty nails. So what I did when I rolled them up with the leaves and the layers ready for dyeing, I also laid nails on the surface of the cloth, and they made wonderful prints. And I've done that many times, and it's something that I really love, and I'm thinking of reintroducing that into my work again. I haven't used them for a little while. I have a beautiful bowl of handmade nails that I found at our local rubbish dump. There is a shop that sells off a lot of things that people donate to raise money for our local hospital, and there was this bowl of handmade nails sitting on the shelf, and of course I grabbed it, and I reused them, so I'll never use them up, I don't think. So the hand stitching was just simple stitches. I used the string that I tied the bundles up for dyeing with to couch down with silk and cotton threads, and just worked intuitively to create this piece. This one also won an award at the quilt show in Tasmania, which was wonderful because my work is often very different from the other exhibits, and I'm never quite sure how they'll do. But that's not the reason I make them. I just make them because I need to make them, and I want to express something and create something. So it's a lovely bonus when it does win something. So I also have one of my latest eco-dyed garments with me, so I'll just go and get that, and I'll have a talk to you about that as well. As you know, I work with recycled materials, and that also includes clothing. And this is a merino jumper that I found in a thrift shop. We call them op shops, which is short for opportunity shops. And I was very fortunate to find a merino jumper. It was actually a pale pink, but I knew it was pale enough for me to actually work with. So I used eucalyptus leaves from our property, also banksia, and also copper pipe, which is why it has the greenish section at the bottom. And I arranged it so that the outside of the bundle was on the front, or the front was on the outside of the bundle, and I wanted the string lines to be a feature. So that's what's happened in the bottom section of the jumper. I've got string lines there and a dark piece at the front. You can also see here a beautiful print from the banksia, and they sometimes print a very soft yellow. The other leaves are all eucalyptus, and there is some fern as well, but I don't think you can see that in this image, but I will be listing it in my online shop with some close-up details, so if you want to check it out and see some more photos, that will be up soon. It's lovely working with a natural material like wool. Unfortunately, I can't wear wool because I'm allergic to it, but I can stitch with it, so I do a lot of my artwork and so on with wool, especially vintage wool, and the garments that are made of wool I generally make available for sale. And it's wonderful that people are supporting a business that tries to be sustainable and ethical, which I have done ever since I started over 20 years ago. And to have the customers support me and to value that is just really wonderful. I also wanted to say that I have mentioned that I was planning to open a class in intuitive stitching, which is what the wall hanging behind me demonstrates. And I have now opened it for enrolments. And once you've enrolled, you can actually start gathering your materials. I will email you a materials list, and then what happens after that is you receive an email once a week for 5 weeks with videos and notes for you to be able to work with me. And what you can do also is to pause the videos so that you can catch up, or you can watch them first and then do the work however you feel best to do it. They will be available to you once you've enrolled forever, or for the life of the actual video, I guess, and you can go back to it whenever you want to, and also the notes. So you'll receive a link via email to each lesson, as I said, once a week for 5 weeks. There will also be some Zoom sessions where you can join the participants in the previous intuitive stitching class, and we can have a chat, share what we're doing, and generally enjoy each other's company online. So I hope that you will join me in this class. I can take up to 12 people, and I do need to have a full quota, but I am planning to start as soon as possible. So if you'd like to have a look and enroll and hold your place and start collecting your materials, I'll put the link at the bottom of this video. It's my online shop is gonerustic.com, and it's on the events page, and it's called Intuitive Stitching. And what I'll do also is I'll show you some examples of what I did to show the participants what we could do and ideas on how to do the intuitive stitching projects. So without further ado, I will show you them. Here is the first scroll that I made as a demonstration and to work with the participants in the intuitive stitching class. And I've chosen to close it with a vintage lingerie pin, and I think I have discussed that before in one of the videos, and put it together with a vintage piece of cotton tape which I stitched on. And it was basically very, very simple technique, and I won't get into too much detail, but we just worked in layers and in sections and used simple stitches, which I do demonstrate as well if you aren't used to doing embroidery, and different ideas on how to arrange them, what sort of fabrics and other things to combine, and so on. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I think the participants did as well. And everybody's scroll turned out so differently, which was lovely. There doesn't have to be anything complicated to make a beautiful piece of work. And the other thing about the course is to actually have the confidence to follow your own instincts. And I do try to encourage that in my students, and to trust your own taste and ideas and not think, oh no, it won't be as good as somebody else's. And one of the other things that we sometimes need to combat is the criticisms we've received in the past from people who either didn't understand us or were unkind, or don't place much value on the artistic process. Everybody is creative in some way, and I'm hoping that you will find that this workshop unlocks that for you and gives you the confidence to do your own thing. If you're a more experienced stitcher, it might be something that you'll really enjoy also, just to share ideas and work on something specific which can help to give motivation if you've been stuck for ideas for a while, which happens to all of us. So that's one scroll. I did mention in another video also that the rod is one that my husband made for me, and it's actually just a piece of dowel with drawer handles glued on the ends. I've made a lot of scrolls. I think I made 5 during and after this class. And this one is a very different style. I used a piece of necklace, which I think is bone, as a closure, and a piece of cloth twine. And I think I have shared a little bit of this with you also. Different style, but just some ideas on what to use, what techniques to use, what stitching to use. I'll just hold that up the other way. And it's just so much fun just to play with materials. And because everyone will have different scraps and so on, everyone's piece will turn out differently. And the way that we organise our stitches and so on as well, each piece will be unique. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you, and I hope to meet you through the courses, especially when we start on the Zoom sessions. The next thing I wanted to show you was an art piece that I'm working on. I have hinted at this in my social media and also in my previous video. I'll have to show you this sideways so you can see it. I used some of my embroidered circles, which I talked about in the last video. I made 12 and I've used 6 on this piece. The background is naturally dyed wool that a friend did and gave to me. Underneath this silk organza is a vintage embroidered bird, which another friend gave to me some years ago, and I was waiting for the right opportunity to use it. The squares and circles are made out of leftover wool wadding and either silk or cotton circles that I've naturally dyed, and then I've used threads from my stash. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm actually sewing and edging on it, which I'm going to fold to the back. So I hope I haven't bumped my stand, because it makes a noise when I do that. So the edges will fold under, so it's like a faced binding. It's not the quilted binding that you see which is mitered on the corners, which I also do on some pieces, but this one I wanted to do the faced binding, and I've used my naturally dyed silk for that also. So I'll just hold it the right way so you can get an idea of what it looks like. And I will share pictures of it at the end of this video. The braid on the sides and at the bottom was also in the package that was given to me with the embroidered bird. And the reason I put the organza on it was partly to protect it and partly to give it some colour, because the colours had faded quite a lot. On the back I've put some of my naturally eco-printed silk, and this was done with rehydrated eucalyptus leaves that I'd had as decoration since before Christmas. So I soaked them in hot water overnight and then drained them on a towel and used them on silk and wool. So I'll show you some of the other pieces that I did as well. And I was quite amazed at how well the colours came out and the printing. So I'll be sharing more about this once it's complete, and as I said, I will add some photographs on the at the end of the video so you can have a closer look at it. As I mentioned, I love printing wool, and just see which side I should show you. A lot of my pieces are actually reversible, and that's because I don't use any barriers in the layers, and I'll roll it up on itself, and that means that you get beautiful patterns on both sides. And you'll notice I've got it rolled around a bit of cardboard tubing, and I use that to keep them from getting creased when I store them, and it means I don't have to iron them again, because after they're washed I do iron them. It's about the only ironing I do, ironing for my art really. So yes, so I'm really pleased with how the colours came out. Again, this was the rehydrated leaves. The rustic cans made some lovely marks, and they also changed the colour of the piece, and you'll see beautiful oranges from onion skin as well as eucalyptus leaves, and there is some banksia on this too, but it's not so clear. And if I show you the other side, it's similar but not the same. There's a bit of onion skin there, And sometimes it makes imprints in the wool too, so you can actually feel ridges where the stems have made imprints in the wool. This one is a similar piece but not the same, because I folded it in half. So when I put the leaves in the layers, I folded it like that, or actually the other way. Folded it like that with the leaves in between. And this one I only used eucalyptus, and again it's reversible. And this dark section is because of the rustic can that I wound it around when I put it in the dye pot. And you get this lovely mirror image, not on this side so much, but on the other side you do. And that's from the rustic can. And then this side is more vibrant. So this was inside the bundle, folded together. And the eucalyptus leaves even had some dark outlines, which was a lovely thing. That's because of the iron. So I'm really happy with that. Now I need to photograph these so they can be available in my online shop. So if you're a textile artist or have other purposes for this, they will be available soon. This one is a very long piece. There is a little bit of damage to it because it's a vintage blanket, but that's a great opportunity for embroidery or even darning, visible mending. And again, the eucalyptus leaves. And these are all foraged from near our home. We've got half bush or half forest on our property, and it's just a wonderful resource. I can't reach the big trees because the leaves are way too high because of the height of the trunks, but I can from the saplings. And you'll see this has an original hand-done label on it. It says Parkside, and I shared this on Facebook and Instagram, that used to be a camping ground on the east coast of Tasmania near St Helens. And so it's a bit of history there, a bit of local history. And then I can turn it over and there's more prints on the back. And I just love the earthy colours and the fact that nature is actually giving me these beautiful colours and shapes on the fabric. Sometimes it's very difficult to decide which side to use when you're planning to use it in a project or a piece of art. Those are my labels. That's my business card, but I've arranged it so that there's space on the back to write descriptions of how it was done and also washing instructions and the price and so on. Here I have a bit more silk. This is vintage silk, and I love how this turned out. So it's the rustic cans, eucalyptus, onion skin, and I just scatter the onion skin over the eucalyptus, and it just gives these wonderful highlights. And the back, again, still lovely prints, and a bit darker at this end where the rustic cans were. So just lovely opportunities to create something with these fabrics. I must admit I do keep some, such as the piece on the back of the bird wall hanging. This is another piece of silk. This one is darker, and I really love how that turned out too. It's quite dramatic and a bit moody, I think. So that had eucalyptus and onion skins as well. And we have two varieties of onion skins, of eucalyptus on our block, and they both print orange, although one of them sometimes prints green. And that's also very exciting because it's a little bit unpredictable. I just wanted to show you the latest journal entries for the Slow Stitching project with K3n Chambers of K3n. I'm so enjoying this, as you know, and we're now well over halfway through the year with the weekly projects. So I'll just undo my second journal and show you what I've done. Sometimes it's quite a challenge, and this one was no exception. The theme was to do a mandala, and I just couldn't connect to the theme, and it took me over a week to come up with something that I felt I could work with. And it's just me, it's nothing to do with K3n. Her themes are always very interesting and lots of extra information too, and background details, which I really love. But I just couldn't connect to it. So what happened was, I was dusting one day and I just had another look at a cup and saucer set that belonged to my grandmother in the Netherlands, and which my mother brought with her to Australia via Canada, because you would know that I was born in Canada and came out here with my parents and siblings when I was in my teens. And this cup and saucer has survived 80 years or so. It was probably made in 1946, hand painted by a Dutch company that still operates. So what I did was I drew the design in a simplified form and then simplified it even more to embroider it. So this is the final result. I've done a background of different pieces of silk and some organza, which I don't think is silk, it's possibly a synthetic, which somebody gave to me. And I embroidered using blanket stitch on the flowers, which went to a point down at the base, or down at the centre, and used a satin stitch for the little flowers, and then used things like whip stitch and running stitch, and then added buttons and beads for some of the other details. I also appliqued a piece in the centre, which is naturally dyed cotton. I did that with avocado. So I'm pretty happy with that now, and I ended up really enjoying the process. The bit of journal writing that I've chosen to go with this is quite short. It was something that I wrote this year as part of my journal practice, and I'll read it to you. Crisp, clear mornings, bright, cool nights. The next page was a real delight, and I had no trouble getting into this at all. The idea was to manipulate fabric onto a background and to allow it to crease and fold, and then to stitch them down in various ways. And I've done this quite often in my work over the years, and I did share on my Facebook page a photo of something that featured folded and manipulated gauze bandage, which I had eco-dyed. And just by the way, that is a very nice fabric to work with if you ever get hold of any. It's just a lightweight gauze bandage that you buy in a roll. So this one I've done in silk, and this was sun printed silk in greens and a bit of pink, I think. And the background is a piece of naturally dyed wool that I had left over from something else. And I've used a variety of stitches. I've used fly stitch, feather stitch and French knots, and then just some stab stitching and running stitch. Oh, also some cross stitch, and that was a lot of fun to do. The bit of journaling that I've put with this one reads like this. Wraiths of mist weave their tendrils between the trees. And that was also written this year. I'm so inspired by my surroundings. I always have loved nature, and because we're now living out of the town, I am just noticing new things every day. And it's about being mindful too, I guess, of your surroundings. Last video also, I mentioned that I thought I might have wrecked my first journal, because this one is number 2. And I'll just get it for you and show you what I've done. I haven't finished yet. This is very fat, and the other one will get fat too. So I'll just undo it. And what I've done, it's made it thicker of course, is I've actually cut and torn new pieces of paper and used double-sided tape to stick over the top of the writing. If you remember, it had smudged and I couldn't actually rub it out, even by writing over it and using an eraser. So I thought the best thing to do was just to cover it up. So I'm still deciding what to do with the title page, but this was my introductory page. The title page isn't too bad, so maybe I will leave it like that. but every other page I have actually added this new piece of paper. It's the same paper as the background. It's Khadi paper. So I'm much happier with it. Of course, some of the signatures on the bottom have also smudged, and the writing underneath each piece has smudged. So I'm still thinking about what to do with that. But at least it is partially rescued. So I'm very pleased about that. And I'm looking forward very much to the next instalment of the Slow Stitching Journal. And I have been leaving a link to K3n's YouTube channel in case you're interested in following along. There's no necessity to do every week. You can pick and choose. So if you're a late starter, you can just look back through the videos and decide what you would like to do. She also has lots of other projects which are interesting to watch and do if you feel like it. So thank you so much, and it was lovely to share this with you.